Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many beautiful faces, including some new ones that haven't been in the group, or at least not in a long time. So, this is July 9th, and we are talking about disability pride because this is the month. July is the month for disability pride. So, we always start with introductions, which include the name that you want to be called tonight. That can be your first name or nickname or whatever you want to be called, and then your pronouns and the answer to the introductory question, which Leah will bring, and we'll go in the order that we came on camera.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leo, pronouns he, him. Uh, Today's question is what trip or what vacation trip are you most excited to take or have taken? For me, I'm just excited to go back home in October, back to Mexico. So, looking forward to that.
Nice. Are you alone tonight, or is Jared there with you?
Jared's on his way. Yeah, he should be here shortly.
Okay, nice. All right, Lynn, you next.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Lynn, pronouns are she, her. And the vacation that I enjoyed the most, and probably in my entire life, was the one to Puerto Rico. Um, it was a family vacation. My brother and his wife invite Francis and I every 2 years to go on their vacation with his daughters and son and their children and spouses and everything. And we went to Puerto Rico 4 years ago now, and it was just beautiful. It was the house that we stayed in was nice, enough bedrooms for each family and everyone that went. There was a swimming pool, but just the sound of the ocean was most relaxing and most beautiful. And of course, we toured. We went into the city and then went to the restaurants and all of that. And the food was delicious, but it was just a special. It was like a special place, and I enjoyed it tremendously. So Puerto Rico.
Okay, Mark.
The one that's on my mind is behind me. So this couple of months ago, I got to go to New York, and I got to meet a lot of people in person that I've been spending a lot of time with. On sorry, he him, Mark he him. Sorry, as opposed to he ha. That'd be different. And so I got to go to this writers conference, which was lovely. Took a train ride up to Hudson, New York, and stayed in this lovely hotel and had meals with people, and got to meet people who as I do, speak in M dashes because I always take detours in my conversations, like I did just a few minutes ago. So it was a really, really fun trip. And the nice thing, I'm quoting Sandy, she always said, the cool thing is, I took the subway to go to the train station. And, when you take the subway, you come up where you come up. And I landed right where Macy's is. And the first time I went to New York was to march in the Thanksgiving parade. And so it's like all of a sudden I walked out the subway station, was like, oh, how are you doing? I saw you, in 1977, so 1976, right? So anyway, that was a lovely, fun, unexpected pleasure.
Oh, nice. Okay, Adrian.
Hi, my name is Adrian, he, him. The vacation that we're most excited to be taken will be Japan. We actually bought flight tickets to go in October, so now we're starting to plan it all out. So it's been one of our dream destinations. So this is gonna be the year.
Wonderful. Okay, Suzette. You're still muted.
Yep. Hey, Suzette, she, her. And we have two vacations planned. One is in November, but we're going to the Bahamas in April. and I've never been there before. And apparently, it's going to be the white sandy beaches and the blue water. So I'm all about that. I love vacations. So, and it's free. We got it free because I gamble. Never mind. Just you can scratch that. But when you gamble on a boat, you get free cruises. So the last time we went on a cruise, we were gambling, and I did good. So God sometimes shines on you, the universe. Okay, I gotta go now.
Okay. All right, Elena. I've known Elena for many, many years since since I lived in Amarillo, and a long time ago, Elena did the whole children's ministry. We had like the best children's ministry in the entire denomination, and more kids. And anyway, that's that's my history with Elena. Is that
There.
okay? Your turn.
Cows. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Elena Jennings, she, her, mom, generally. And like Carol was saying, I've known her for a long time, and we've shared a lot of time with our children and the different abilities that they have.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, going to Taos with our daughter and her husband and just being together.
Yay. That's a good
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Anybody else want to say hello on screen?
No, she's working.
Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, Kreger.
Kreger, he, they. Favorite vacations in the past, obviously going to Germany, France, and Switzerland, because my husband speaks French and German. So all I had to do was not lose sight of him, and I was fine. But then next week, actually, we're going to a Grunewald family reunion in Pennsylvania. So I will get to see a lot of people that I haven't seen. And, Aunt Rita, she had pancreatic cancer. They removed her whole pancreas, and now, of course, she has to have daily insulin. But unfortunately, they found spots on her back, on the spine now. Mm-hmm. So I told Paul, let's go see somebody while they're still alive, because
Yes.
So that's what we're doing next weekend.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Okay, Kate.
Hi, my name's Kate. They, them. Hi, Janice.
Hi, sweetie.
I'll see you Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I didn't hear the question, but was it a favorite past vacation or a future vacation?
Yeah, either or. Mm-hmm.
The only one that comes to mind for me was before my parents died. On their 60th wedding anniversary, Gail and I took them for a cruise out of Boston up to Canada. And it was like one morning, like 6 a.m, we were arriving in Canada, and her and I were sitting outside on the deck, and there was one person on the port there greeting us, playing the bagpipes. And it was just like the most magical moment with my Irish mom, because she was like, it was the most amazing trip, and we're so happy that we did that for them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, Janice.
Hi, Janice, she, her. I think my favorite one was on my third honeymoon. We went to Colorado. I love Colorado. We have A-frame. What do you call them? Well, you rent homes for a while. I forget what that's called, but I'm sorry.
You're talking about like an Airbnb or a cabin or
A cabin. Yes, ma'am. That's it. So the best part of that, obviously, was Kim and I alone. Okay, but the very best thing was Kim's adopted goddaughters, Tanganyika and O'Shea. Tanganyika was constantly up Kim's ass, constantly their mother Sabrina asking for money and stuff like that. So anyway, present to me from Kim, we had a whole week, no calls from anybody. Sabrina, the girls, obviously my daughter, because if I'm going to do it, I share. You know, I treated Tanganyika and O'Shea along with Colton. Along with Ian, extremely fairly. And I always did. So my thought was if I exclude them from being able to call us, then I should do the same, you know. So I think that was my favorite vacation.
nice. Jared, do you want to go? I see you made it.
So the question, I assume, is favorite vacation, right? I live. Okay. I mean, it's obviously the Mexico trip. Though, you know, I love seeing my tias. You know, I love spending time in, you know, such a warm communal environment, you know, and it's just it's such a different culture shock. Like, you know, like America, we don't, you know, you need like a license to like operate a store or whatever. But everybody in the area where we're at literally has a store attached to their house that they operate right out of, and it's so cool. It is so cool because it reminds me of the of my home in the Philippines and stuff, because we have a store too. It's the same thing. But just noticing these things is so because like everyone has an excuse to come to everybody's house and stuff and spend time with everybody. Because I mean, you know, I gotta get my chips from Tia, or I gotta get my, you know, my bag milk from Tito or whatever.
Tortillas.
Yeah, my tortillas. You know, neighbor from down the street. You know, it's so you can't replicate it here.
Well, I like what you're saying about family vacations. I'm Carol, she, her, and I think I'm still gonna mention my trip to Europe, but family vacations are particularly nice. No, maybe I'll just say about family. This year is the first time I missed my a family reunion that we have every 2 years. It's my dad's mother's side of the family. The family's Kern is the family name, and so we meet near like south of Austin. What's the name of that town? I can't think of it right offhand. Anyway, it's real close to a church where my great grandfather, or was it my great great grandfather, preached, and they have kind of a little museum area in the parish hall, and a cemetery and everything. And so we get to visit that and just, you know, hang out with family. And they have a church service on Sunday morning before we leave. So I'll look forward to getting back to that in 2 years. So that's what I want to say. Janice, did you want to add something?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm really looking forward to this vacation. Hopefully, we're planning on Ian being home. He's the one in the Air Force in October. And hopefully my home, I keep saying mom's house, but my home, hopefully my home will be sold by then. And I would like to spend a week in Colorado with my daughter, all my grandchildren, you know, and their spouses, you know, and I want to be able to fit the bill. Which daughter said we would talk about that, but anyway. So That's what I want to do. That's
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Tonight we're talking about disability pride. So we just finished Pride Month in June. And, when I was trying to learn a little bit about disability pride, I found that film that I mentioned to you in the email, called Crip Camp, which features Judy Human. And she's also written a book called Being Human, spelled like her last name. And she is considered the mother of the disability rights movement. And she's a pretty impressive woman. The documentary starts with a camp called Camp Jened that like, I'm not sure what year they were first showing it, either late 60s or early 70s. And just this New York place, just these, it wasn't anything super organized or anything. This was, long before ADA laws or anything. And they just got all these people with disabilities, mostly teenagers from New York, and just took them out for the summer and got these counselors. And one of the things that first impressed me from the counselors was that a lot of them were like, I didn't know anybody with disabilities before this camp. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think it highlights not only, I think that's still a lot of people's reality. A lot of people don't know a lot of people with disabilities, but I think it was much more prevalent then, when there was such isolation, and so many parents were told that if their kid had major disabilities, that they should be institutionalized. It also showed a very tragic picture of Willowbrook, one of the institutions where people went with cognitive disabilities, and other problems. And so I think that's part of why that's not so much the case anymore, and it has been made quite visible. I may say more about the film in the as we go on, but basically it moves through a lot of the people who were at that camp together, kind of migrated toward Berkeley. A lot of them found this little group of people in Berkeley and moved to start doing a lot of sit-ins. Particularly 1977 is when they focused on trying to pass, it was called 504, sit-in for 504. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to one of the things that struck me was just first developing this sense of community, and then there was a lot of need for sexual expression, which made me bring to mind like the whole pride movement too, and a lot of the people in Berkeley. They showed one of the guys who was at the camp, saying something like, he was on stage. I mean, he couldn't walk, but he got on stage, and they introduced him as being a transvestite for a living, and he was doing one of those songs that it reminded me of Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it was just pretty hilarious. But very expressive. And in the camp too, a lot of the people said this was the first time that, some of them said that was the only place they ever dated in their whole life, or they would go make out with each other, or whatever. And one couple, a woman named Denise, they married later. These two people with CP, and she went on. She was talking about how people with disabilities are often regarded as asexual, and just maybe not even having a gender at all. And I don't think that's true at all. So Denise chose to address that by going on to get a master's in human sexuality and having something to say about it. But she also recalls one time when she went to have her appendix out, and the doctor came afterwards and said, "You know what? I think you might have gonorrhea." And she was like, "I was so proud of myself." I think
Wow, Carol.
that just, I don't think that's the reaction much of us would have. But anyway, I thought that just the whole movements of pride and just that need to be seen as an entire human being, and the way that the people came out and said, until this movement, until these sit-ins, I just always tried to make myself as small, as invisible as possible, and tried to just fit in. And this movement made me feel like I was a real, whole, authentic individual. So that really resonated with me. Kreger?
Okay, so my trivia question tonight is, who was the president of the United States who signed the Americans with Disabilities Act?
It was Bush, right?
Which one?
Roosevelt?
FDR.
What?
Suzanne hit the buzzer first. Suzanne hit the buzzer first.
You're muted.
Was it Clinton?
No, I thought it was Clinton too, but because I was like, a Republican possibly have signed that bill, but it was in fact George Herbert Walker Bush in 1990.
July.
I had my hand raised for another thing, just an add on to the prior comment from Carol. But
Okay.
basically, there's a show called The Pit, right? And there's a doctor on there who has a sister, a younger sister, I guess, or older sister, I don't know, but she's cognitively disabled. And she comes into the ER for treatment. And it's about her having a boyfriend. And the sister's just mortified. And that was like really the first time I thought about that kind of thing. That we don't think about that really from the outside. And what do caregivers do and family do when they are caregiving an adult person with a physical or cognitive disability? And how do they allow that to develop inside their family unit? I think that's just like a first line thing. But this poor girl was just mortified that her sister was expressing herself in that way. You're not done. So, anyway, it's a good show.
Were they able to work that out?
Her sister was more worried about her disabled sister being taken advantage of. And I really don't remember the conclusion of what happened, but I think they got their hands or their minds around it. They wrapped their minds around what was going on and managed it. But it was all about, the fear of being taken advantage of by somebody else. So.
And that's a big part of human sexuality, isn't it? And that's what I'm that was my push with Marco, was trying to get him to learn consent. And I mean, when he was like in I guess it would be kind of like the equivalent of kindergarten, when he first started classes, I would ask him, like, "Do you have a girlfriend?" And he would be like, "I have 5." he would get in trouble for kissing, and then he really Elena knows the church I'm talking about, St. Andrew's in Amarillo. Marco got confirmed there eventually, but when he was in Sunday school classes, he would get he literally almost had to stop coming to Sunday school because he wouldn't let go of the girls, and he would scare them. He would hug them so much and so hard and just hang on to them, and they're wanting to get away, and he was scaring them. And so anyway, that's how I tried to focus things, but now he just doesn't seem interested really at all. But I think recognizing the fact that and he did have a girlfriend in Las Cruces. They were really, really cute together, even though they both had kind of limited verbal skills, and they would just say, I love you too.
Sweet.
So, but I told him I wasn't going to chaperone him anymore until he really learned about things like consent, including letting go when you're hugging someone when they ask you to. So he is learning. Jared or Leo?
Yeah, my husband was just talking about love on the spectrum. As like a show, that really, brought like the love aspect of people who are differently abled into like the forefront of really politics and culture, right? Because that was never, like even though, like the disability rights movement has always existed in regard to sexuality and sensuality and intimacy and all of the forms of human connection. Like there's never been a push to make it cute or sexy, and I think that's specifically because we have, when it comes to sexuality, we've done this Love Island thing where we have these sort of patriarchal ideals, right? Where whenever you have love and love making and romanticism, if you're male, it's based on competency, and if you're female, it's based on demureness, right? But if you're female and you're differently abled, right, then there's a level of groomership, there's a level of power dynamics, right, that is inappropriate. And then if you're male, then there's like a level of, demasculinization, right, that is perceived. And it's all fundamentally incorrect, of course, as we all know, right? Your abilities have nothing to do with your masculinity, femininity, or whatever you are. And that also has nothing to do with the fact that you have sexual needs too, right? But we've created this illusionary game in the dating world where we have built up these dynamics that are incompatible with the human condition, because we all will have disabilities. We all have disabilities, right? I'm gonna be real. I don't know a person without a disability, right? I don't know a single person. Like you talk to me, I'm already pulling out the DSM. Then I'm like, you got a couple. You should apply for disability right now, Donald Trump. And like these sort of things, it's the illusion of like a relationship that is like flush with all these weird power dynamic stuff, really gets in the way of normal relationships as much as it gets in the way of the intimacy of people who are differently abled in their pursuit for love. Because we see it even in Love on the Spectrum, even in these shows where we're talking about people who with some level of neurodivergence, like the people with Down syndrome finding love, right? It still finds its way into sabotaging these relationships, where neurotypical people find it harder to date neurodivergent people because they're like, oh, if you're a dude, you're not masculine enough. For your female, it's kind of, I feel like there's infantilization. And, all it does is just get in the way of people loving people. It's so pathetic.
That's true. Mark?
Ooh, a lot. So I'll just start one place. When I was studying at GTU, there's a class that I took at PLTS, the Lutheran Seminary, called Sex and Sensibility. And since I was doing a degree in spirituality and LGBT issues, but it was an amazing course because it covered sexuality from a baby. Dr. Pence talked about his little grandson when he was little, about putting him in the car seat, like, do you want it up or do you want it down? He said that's when conversations about sexuality start, at that level. It's a lifelong thing, not like, oh, you're 18 or before you're 18 you got to know this, right? But he also talked about sex for seniors, sex for this, and also sexuality for handicapped persons. And they had an interview with the guy who played Superman, who was paralyzed, and he and his partner talked about how that went, because he was paralyzed, and that didn't end, right? So learning this not only from people who are born with challenges, but also for people. My father lost his leg, and my parents' relationship, for many reasons, fell apart. But I think part of it was, I doubt very seriously when he lost, way up high in his leg, that they got therapy for, and now some things have to change. I don't think they got 10 seconds worth of, this is how this is going to affect your intimate life, because I know, I'm 99% sure that part of their life suffered greatly after his surgery, because again, sexuality was not, it was very limited in the 1960s about what was male to female sex, or what was proper. He's raised Presbyterian. I have a nephew who is a special needs young man. He's 46 now. And as I wrote in the chat, there are issues between having caregivers and trust. And there were just some really horrible things that happened to him, because the caregivers come and go, and you can't be. And the whole purpose of having a caregiver is so you don't have to be there 24/7. But so much of their bodily functions and all rely on these caregivers, and some of them are not trustworthy.
Yeah.
So it's a huge issue, and again, like you said, Jared, it's like there's this assumption that oh, well, then you've got other issues, so sexuality is not one of your issues. Well, it's a human issue.
Janice, and I want to hear from Elena soon about, since we're the two that share some experience with kids. Okay, Janice.
So I'm not sure if this is exactly what you were looking for, but this is a huge issue for disabled individuals. My niece Keelan is on the spectrum, autism, whatever you call that. But anyway, she's in a special class with a special eds, special, whatever you call them. Okay, God bless them. But so my sister found out that this man was grooming her. I mean, grooming her. Police, all that stuff was involved. And there was another young girl in there that was starting to become groomed by this man too. So he was arrested. But how do we protect them? They're disabled. They, right, wrong, they're all at different levels. So I think that's a big concern, is to trust the caregivers, their teachers, this and that, that they will truly help those children or those men and those women. But I've heard about women up in their age, disabled, and someone does what they want to do to that person, and they don't know right from wrong, the disabled individual. But
I understand
feel
what
like we have to.
you're and I think that's really, individual. I don't think we can make a whole lot of blanket statements, but I think that just raising those considerations. I mean, that's just like sexuality is a universal human need, so is safety. And so I think it really depends on the disability and
Yes, it does.
So autonomy comes into those equations too. And I think about that a lot with Marco. Just how and I mean, in most cases, I can let Marco make decisions for himself. I mean, most of the time, those kind of things are appropriate. But, sometimes he'll do things that are not. And it was worse when he was younger. And one time I came home and his caregiver, who was like the only one we had at the time, and I mean, I was working full time. I needed her every day. And she walked out crying. She said, "I'm never coming back." And I said, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, because Marco told me that I'm fired." And I was like, I mean, you got to understand where he's coming from. And so, maybe she wasn't the best caregiver that could have been with him if she didn't understand that. But still, it left me in a big lurch.
I bet it did. I bet it did.
The very next day. So thereafter, I just had to tell caregivers, if he ever tries to say anything like that, please do not take it personally and call me. And so Marco cannot fire you. So, Adrian, I saw you came back on screen. Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
No, I was messing with something on the settings, and that's why I put the camera. But I guess the thoughts that are coming through to my mind, and it's like probably not like how correct or not correct, because I am not an expert. I do have a cousin that is definitely special needs, and of course he's now an adult. He's I believe he's getting closer to 30 right now. So, and my aunt has to take care of him full time. He can have a part-time job, so, but he can never drive, himself, or will he be able to make those decisions of living by himself? Like, probably not. He probably can stay like a week by himself because he has like maybe like an odd like age level of maybe like 7-8 years old around, maybe a bit more, but so it's kind of interesting to hear that. But when I was hearing you guys talk about the sexual needs, about special needs, it kind of brought my mind kind of went into like why that's not being brought up more by people, or why does that seem to be like, oh no, I don't want to talk about that, or let's not think about that. And I wonder it's because people with special needs, and maybe this is just my bad thought process, is that hey, they don't know well, and so they're basically naive, they're young, they basically have a childlike mentality, and usually childlike ends up being like, hey, they're not should not be doing these type of things because they're childlike. And but that fact is they're not. They're capable and they're full grown adults. And like I said, sometimes some people can make those decisions themselves because they're capable to make those decisions, while some others, they might need to get some extra help to be able to do that, or even get those needs out as well. Everybody has to have their own. It's just kind of difficult. But that's the main thing I was thinking. I want maybe the reason why people are do feel so awkward about that is because they kind of think of it like the childlike of it, the, you know, the, you don't know better, and therefore because you're so innocent, you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't even be thinking about this. But in fact, it's like, no, that's a full adult at the same time, and you do have your needs as well. So that's what I was thinking.
Yes, and I think just yeah, I think that is the point. We don't want to infantilize people who are actually full grown adults. And on the other hand, it's a balancing act with protection, and yeah, every situation is different. Every situation is different, but I think there are some general principles that if that we just see each individual as a whole person, and having their own individual authentic needs, and just we just have to remember that that does include sexual needs, especially for disabled adults, um, and teaching sexuality. You know, you know, there's so much information out there, and just so many ways to look at sexuality in a beautiful, healthy way, that I wish I had had growing up. I just, I think I must have been in my 50s before I ever really heard a conversation about consent or anything like that, or real, or even just real of how you communicate your sexual needs. I mean, that isn't something we talked about when I was a girl. I barely learned about periods. I didn't understand periods until I got one. You know, it was just all so hush hush, and that's wrong. So talking about it, I think, is and just really considering the person as a whole human being is the critical factor. Leo and Jared?
Yeah, there's, and like there is kind of like a common, how would you say, thread, on why we struggle with validating the needs of the differently abled community, because it's not just sexuality, but it boils down to sexuality, right? Because it's all kind of interwoven, right? Like not seeing them as not seeing the differently abled community as peeps, is like it is patriarchal. It is like a huge fundament of like these supremacist ideologies, right? Because like when Adrian was describing it, and it sort of like reminded me of the love that I experienced from whenever I had racist friends. Like the love that I'm not talking about harm. I'm talking about the love that I experienced, right? Because the love that I experienced was like not like that of a human being to human being, but like that of a pet, right? Well, like that, like don't you dare have your own stuff that you got going on, right? But like you're great as infrastructure. I appreciate you, and I'll take care of you, and I'll nurture you, and I'll do all these things, right? And these levels of dehumanization, right? They're kind of there, interwoven in the way that we interact with people who we don't see as equal in every way. This is a huge part of American culture. This is a huge part of the global culture, because that's what colonialism does, right? You have to dehumanize before you can enslave. And so like that piece, like is so sad, because like I think to go further, when we really haven't had enough of a conversation, like the social atmosphere of this world about disability, because in reality, what we are doing, we are dehumanizing our, you know, differently abled brothers and sisters and turning them into pets and treating them like they're furniture and objects, and they don't have any, you know, and like it's not even just in the way that they experience sexuality, it's in their rights, it's in the way we design our buildings, it's in the way that we, you know, think of what a business meeting looks like, right? Where we have people of that are walking in saying hi to everybody. You got to wear heels. When we're designing the dress code, right? All of these things, every part of the infrastructure that we reside in seems to sort of look at them as like an afterthought. And you know, like it reminds me of the age old adage of, you know, like nobody's free until we're all free.
Right.
Right. And so like I think that's kind of a huge part of why it's so easy to, you know, overlook the sexualities of the differently able community, because really what there is a level of disgust that that racist people have when they think about the reproduction of certain other races, right? Like there's a little bit of a tabooness of, oh, you know, like I'm not racist, but you know, I don't ever date those people, right? Or I just don't find them sexually attractive, right? And all my exes look the exact same, and they just so happen to have the same racial monikers, right? They just so happen to be blue-eyed blonde, or you know, like some level of tall and fit, right? And definitely not disabled. And so like it all kind of weaves together in a mess that we really have to tackle. And you know, that's kind of also why we're grateful for shows like, you know, Love on the Spectrum, because at the very least, you know, although they may be going around in a little backwards type of way, like please don't datify these people and their people's lives, but at least we're getting the dialogue out. It's something.
Yeah, I think that's very true. One of the there was a scene in that film Crip Camp that where Judy is speaking in the microphone, and she's talking about the intersectionality with like the Vietnam protesters were right in that same time frame as their initial sit-in, and of course a lot of those vets were coming back disabled, but it was more than that. She made a statement, something like, we have to include all the pieces of the pie. And she must have just been a born leader. At the first sit-in, I think it was in 1977, I believe, and it started in San Francisco and lasted for like 3 days until they all flew to Washington, D.C. But she had all these people. They didn't start out planning to have this like sleepover in this courthouse, but she was always making sure that every type of disability was included. She was like, okay, now, okay, it looks like we're going to be here all night. Who's capable of sleeping on the ground? Who's able to do this? Who's able to do that? The Black Panthers are the one group that came and brought them food and everything like that. But it included she didn't allow anybody to start talking at a mic until they had a sign language interpreter present. Which I think is something we really need to keep in the front of our minds as we do anything. There were a number of blind people who became leaders in this movement, and people with invisible disabilities too. And everybody got to tell their stories, and it became quite the little community. Mark, before I I see your hand up, but before I just want to say one more thing about that movement. Shoot, I just lost my thread. Never mind. I'll come back to it after you, Mark.
Senior moment.
Well, I know in Berkeley there's a center for people with disabilities, differently able people, and there's also an LGBT wing of that that's been for years. So I think a lot of that work is still very much going on. I was, and then forgive me if I missed part of this, but about sexuality. Have you seen the movie Benny and June? It's Mary Lou Masterson and Johnny Depp. And Mary Lou Masterson plays a woman who physically looks perfectly fine, and she's either emotionally or mentally immature. And it's very subtly managed through the whole movie, where there's a fear of them having sex, right? Because it's obvious there's an attraction, and and even not whether she understands what all's going on, there's this fear of like, oh my goodness, it's gonna pass. Whatever she has is gonna, like reproduce, And so I think that's the fear. And again, I've seen it in my family, where one person said, I'm not gonna have children because there's a fear that whatever happened, even anyway. So I think it's not discussed, at least in my generation. We got very little discussion on sexuality, and certainly we only got sexual discussions like for your gender, which is crazy. It's like, okay, he is barely how the male operates, and that female thing we'll give you a diagram maybe, but so we don't talk about that, more or less about anything beyond the borders of this narrow area that we have to talk about, and again, the other thing too, when my raise up, everybody was separate. So people, if you had any kind of special needs, you were in a different building or someplace else. So there wasn't even the sense to have conversations. I mean, one of the nicest things that happened to me when I was in Fresno was this woman who was legally blind, totally blind, played piano, and she became a good friend. And she came up because she went through like 4 or 5 other music directors and asked if I would let her play. And I said yes. And she told me not long after that, you were supposed to say no. Why did you, And so we had this lovely relationship because I got to know her and see the world through her eyes in many ways, and experience all the things that involve. And that's just one sight. That's just one aspect of it.
I was just going to mention some of the legal aspects, and pride resulted in a lot of rights that became codified into law over time, somewhat, and some of those we're losing. So some of those are really being threatened right now. But marriage equality was one of the ones that came up, and I would say marriage equality is still not there for people with disabilities, and I mean, 2 people with major disabilities getting married are going to lose all their benefits. So and that's ridiculous. I mean, why should that be? And why should disabled people have to be poor to receive their benefits? One of the things that really struck me also in the intersectionality of it came with that first sit-in that they were talking about in this documentary. Sorry, I keep going back to that. I hope y'all get a chance to watch it at some point. But I really learned a lot. And that first sit-in was about a rule called 504, which they did eventually get passed while they were in Washington, like on day 7 or 10 or something like that, of these sit-in, sleep-in kind of things. And the guy back in California just signed it into law without that much thought about it or fanfare or anything. He had been so opposed to it from the beginning and kept calling these sit-ins illegal gatherings and things like that, but ended up just signing it. But what it created, the best thing that it did was allow kids with disabilities to go to public schools, which is huge.
Yes. Yes.
And what they had proposed previously, what they had proposed trying to do was create like one school in every district or whatever, or however they divided the state into being like a separate school for people with disabilities, which is what most of these kids that were at that camp initially, a lot of them had not been allowed to go to school at all, or if they did, it was it didn't matter if they had cognitive disabilities or not, they were in special ed classes. And so that it was a long way from the ADA and from having equal access, but still it was a start. And their main point is that separate is not equal. So what does that remind you of? I say, go ahead.
Race, the Board of Education.
Right. Right. And we all know that separate but equal is never equal.
Yes.
So
Oh, did you see we have a new person?
I just saw that. So John
Hmm.
Prosper, can you hear us? Can you come on camera? I think that we this conversation, there's still so much. Hello. This conversation has so much nuance to it. Could we maybe consider a different aspect of it next week? Does that sound okay with everyone?
For what again, Carol? I apologize.
There's so many pieces to this that we haven't touched on very much. I wonder if you would consider, would anybody get bored if we keep the subject the same next week?
I'm good.
Okay. So John Prosper, we kind of introduced ourselves at the beginning almost an hour ago. So you're joining us in the last few minutes of our of our talk, but I want to tell everyone we had our introductions at the beginning too, just some real quick introductions. So you kind of missed that part, but I want to tell everyone that you are, or I told them from the beginning that you are a pastor of an emerging MCC church, Shalom MCC in Western Uganda. Do you want to say anything else real quick before we close up?
Okay. Thank you, Carol. I'm called Pastor John Prosper Chomson from Shalom MCC, a new emerging church. Currently, we have God has blessed us with 40 members so far. We were 35 last Sunday, and these 35 they are going to go through a process of membership. Maybe after three Sundays, when they finish 3 Sundays praying with us, they will go through a process of membership. I'm so humbled to be part of you, to learn more with you, to study with you, and to pray together. I'm so humbled. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I know it's the middle of the night in Uganda, so really tickled that you woke up and came to join us here. Can I just ask you, so our subject tonight, we were talking about disability pride. Do you have anybody with different types of disabilities in your gathering right now? Like
yes,
people? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one person who has got a disability in my community, and we do respect people who are in disabilities, and also we do give them equal opportunities when it comes like share. Also, we give them mic also to give sharing like testimonies. Yes.
Nice. Are there laws that similar like part of the reason that this month we use to celebrate Disability Pride is that 36 years ago in July, an act called the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. Is there anything similar to that in terms of legislation in Uganda, like saying that public spaces have to have like wheelchair ramps and sign language interpretation and things like that?
It is not yet launched, and I wish it can be launched, because in Uganda I haven't seen maybe like separating like those people who have got disabilities, and only that they are not looked at, they are ignored by the people.
Okay. Well, okay, maybe let's plan on talking more next week. I thank everyone for being here, and Elena, I hope we can chat a little more next week, and I will stay on after we stop the recording also. But Kreger, would you pray us out?
Certainly. Holy God and Holy Spirit, we thank you for this episode of God Talk. One more time, we gather as the beloved community, and how exciting tonight to have someone from Uganda on our call. This really is a global community now. We see we can be friends, we can reach out, and we can touch anybody. So love this technology, love this opportunity. And I guess as we move forward, looking for the continuing of this discussion next week, we just ask you to be with us this week. Help us to walk in light and love, and help us to do something really good for another human being this week. In Jesus' name we're praying. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.